How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and today I just want to talk to you about the importance of making sure your bow stays in tune throughout the hunting season. Right now I've been hunting for several weeks. I actually harvested one deer earlier in the season, and then I had a very costly situation where my arrow was off by about a half of an inch, and it cost me a deer. And I just checked the timing, the draw stop timing on my bow, also some of the cam lean things, and I discovered that they were off without me knowing it before. So let me talk to you about this real quick. And I'll also say that when I corrected the draw stop timing and the cam lean, my sight actually needed to be moved because my arrows were hitting in a different area than where I was aiming. And so that can play a huge factor in your hunting. And there are situations where a half of an inch can cost you a deer. And so we want to keep everything in tune as best as possible so that, you know, in those critical moments, we have success and not failure. So let me talk to you real quick about draw stop timing. Now I use a draw table that I built very simply using a boat winch and a large hook that I just purchased at a hardware store and fastened it to my workbench. So if you want to build something like that, just make sure that everything is extremely sturdy. The bottom side of the plywood table that I put the hook into, I actually have a 2x4 underneath, and that gives extra, grip for that hook to fasten into. Now to make this type of a construction, you're basically only going to need to spend about 25 or 30 bucks for the most simple way possible. I just used a boat winch, which was right around $20. You wanted some rope that's rated for 100, 200 pounds, something like that, just that is not going to potentially break while you're doing your bow. The hook itself maybe was $4 or $5. And I actually also bought a bow scale for around $40. You don't have to have that. It is nice. I don't particularly like this one, so I wouldn't recommend this. I would actually recommend a non-digital one, so it actually has a spring inside, and those are just, I think, more reliable. Also, you just need a little Velcro, and that holds the bow down to keep it steady while it's in the unit being drawn. So that's one way of doing it. If you want to develop something like that on your own, just make sure that everything is extremely sturdy and secure so that there's no accidents. Also, it's recommended that you wear goggles when you're working on something like that, just in case something breaks and goes flying. If you don't have that or access to something like that, you're going to need a friend, and you're going to have to draw your bow, and then once you reach full draw, just come off of it, and you have to be super careful, but have the person look at your draw stops on the top and bottom cam, and just barely be holding it back against the wall so they can see if they're touching at the same time. What happened when I checked mine is I forget which cam it was now. One of my cams was under rotating by 1/8 of an inch. So my one draw stop was hitting and the other was still 1/8 of an inch away, but I couldn't even feel it. And I was actually, at full draw, I was still pulling back so that the other one would come in contact. But ultimately that was resulting in my bow being slightly louder and a little less effective. So I adjusted the draw stop timing. I also had very faint cam lean. I adjusted that by I put 1/2 twist in the appropriate side for my yoke system here, and that straightened the cam. This is a Hoyt. I did a whole video on how to tune a Hoyt. Every bow is a little bit different. This has a single yoke system. Some have double yoke, so it's going to depend on your type of bow. But for this type with one yoke system, I prefer to have no cam lean. When I was using my Bowtech, it actually helps if you have appropriate cam lean in certain situations. So anyway, that's going to depend on your bow. But my point is, make sure especially that your draw stop timing is in, because as for me, it changed where my arrows were hitting by several inches. In my experience, having cam lean where you did not have it before affects where your arrow hits the target from right to left, because it's actually changing your center shot. When your draw stops are out of timing, in my experience, it can sometimes impact, especially where your arrow hits vertically. It'll vary from bow to bow and the way you hold it and things like that. But as for me, the way I shoot, those are some of the things that I've noticed. And again, having your arrow hit high or low or right or left can cost you an animal. How often should you check your bow? Well, especially if you're hunting a lot and your bow is getting banged into things, very frequently. You don't want to risk having your bow go out of timing on you. And so I have been in the process of resighting my bow in so that I can get back out and hunt. But I will say I notice a difference in the way the bow feels now when I come to full draw than when I was a little bit out. And because it happens gradually over time, the draw stop timing going out, you often, like me, I didn't even recognize it until I checked it. Now I'm ready to hit the woods.